Then we have to let everyone in, yeah.
All right. Got everybody joining us here.
I see some familiar names. Hi, Gray.
Got a few people
Maggie.
joining us here. Give them just a
Hi.
minute to get situated.
We have Jack with us this time too.
All right. First, if you let me know once everybody looks like they're situated in here.
Yeah. Get everybody in and set up. Make sure you can hear us. Can everybody hear
Right.
us? Sounds like most of you can. Looks like most of you can, I guess.
All right. Looks like everybody's
Yeah,
getting
you
some
getting some
thumbs up.
thumbs
Good
up.
deal. Well, we'll extend a warm welcome to everybody this afternoon. This is the second in our series of AI-focused webinars. Today's entitled AI for Growth, How Forward-Thinking Leaders Are Using AI for Success. My name is Barrett Ernie with Ernie IT, and I've been in the IT space for over 20-some years now, and we're looking forward to having a good discussion this afternoon. We'll go ahead to the next slide here. But a long background in IT and technology. Love working with local business owners and using AI for efficiency. And that's a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. But just honestly having great conversations and helping local business owners use AI in a way that benefits them and making their businesses better. And then joining me on the call today is Alec Langban. Alec and I have been working together for 7 years plus now. And Alec is currently in the service manager position at Ernie IT, but carries a number of different hats as well too. So Alec, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a
Yeah,
little
so
bit of
like you
background.
said, in the service manager role, so then of course very heavily into operations, working with teams, working right on the end user support side of Ernie IT, working with our clients, making
Yeah.
sure that they're getting the support they need. Then of course AI comes into that of making these processes and procedures that how can we use AI the best way possible. So
Yeah. Just a little bit of background for everybody else on the call today. If you don't know us, we're Ernie IT. We've been serving Southeastern North Carolina since 2000. Recently, in the last 3-4 years, experienced rapid growth. But at the same time, we're focused very focused on the managed IT, cybersecurity, data recovery, if you need that in your small business area. But really meeting the needs of small businesses. I got my start in the healthcare industry. Working with small healthcare practices, dental and oral surgical companies, but also just small business in general. And at the end of the day, the fact is we're dedicated to long-term results, but it's all about relationships. You know, AI is not going to replace the relationships that we have with our clients, and that is at the absolute core of what we do at Ernie IT. If you've ever talked to any of our guys, I mean, Alec, we always get this great feedback. And what is it that we always hear about our team? They're fast. That's like, right. So we prioritize speed, consistency in all of our client interactions, and we respond as quickly as possible. So that's what you get with Ernie IT, but less about us. Let's talk about our subject matter today. We're going to get into it. Today's focus, AI is no longer the future. It's how work gets done now. Real success doesn't come from just experimenting with random prompts. It comes from building a plan. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Building a plan, creating real workflows, helping your team feel confident using the tools that are already at their fingertips. So you'll see those 3 points down at the bottom. That's going to be the core focus: planning it, building it, and then sharing it with your teams. So let's move in to the core part of it. And this is a whole methodology. I'll talk here for just a second, planning it. And we're going to move away from treating AI like a toy. So today's goal is we want you to feel like you've moved away from the toy box. Think Toy Story, like, hey, this is great. Like, you got a toy box, you pulled AI out. It's fun. You've done a few little cool tips and fun little things. Now you're actually going to be working with a toolbox, right? So toy box to toolbox. And then Alec, a little bit, what's the next thing we're going to be focusing on there?
So once you've, we'll talk through how to figure out if you're treating AI like a toy, right? Because you might be thinking, well, I'm using it for some real things, but we'll give you some red flags that'll show if you're treating it like a toy. And if you are, then we got to move into building a system around how we can automate AI to make things better, make things faster, build more efficiency. So how do we build something that can make us more efficient? May seem overwhelming, but we'll be able to help out with that today.
Yeah, awesome. And then at the end, um, with your team, right? Like you're a leader in your organization, you're a CEO, you're a visionary, but at the end of the day, you want your teammates, you want the rest of your people to be able to find new ways to discover this information. You're going to have wins and successes. How do you make your team learn from these experiences? How do you have good opportunities so that you can share your wins and your successes with them as well? So that's kind of our goal for today. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get underway, going right into the planet section. There is going to be a giveaway at the end of our webinar today. It is recorded, so at the end you'll get a copy of that. Just a little bit of a disclaimer, we are recording this. But stick around to the end of our webinar. You have to be on at the end. So giveaway, Crystal will announce that at the very end. And then we'll have an email that'll go out with all the subject matter and everything. So you'll be able to get that. But stick around at the end. We'll have a $50, I think it's an Amazon gift card or something, which is going to be great because Black Friday is coming up. So that's exciting. And I think that's everything as far as housekeeping. I don't think I left
One
anything.
more thing.
Yep.
For question, we'll have a portion for questions at the very end. Just make sure to use the Q&A part at the very top of your Teams meeting instead of the chat. We'll be looking for questions in the Q&A portion.
Yeah, thanks, Alec. I knew I'd forget something. So awesome. So let's get right into our framework that we started talking about. We talked a little bit about that toy box versus toolbox. So the concept here is, how have you been using AI so far? Maybe you've kind of treated it like a fun experiment, a little bit like a toy. You kind of pulled it out, you've used it, it's kind of tempting, a little, and then you kind of put it away. But the goal here is that leaders should be looking at it as taking a problem, something that you can identify as a problem, and then figuring out what are the results going to be, and then looking for a way to create some form of improvement off of that issue, right? So the framework here is 3 steps. 1, identify a time-consuming or repetitive task. And we've kind of talked about this, right, Alec? It's like AI absolutely excels, and AI is always changing, but AI absolutely excels at repetitive, time-consuming things that we may see. And we'll give some good examples of that here in just a moment, right?
Yeah.
And then when you look at that, maybe you're thinking of things, if you're on this call, that that you do all the time that are repetitive, then you have to define success. And that could be in many different ways. It could be that you want to save time. Maybe it's you're looking for errors, so you want error reduction. You're looking at the data and you're looking for mistakes. Sometimes it could be clarity gained. And what do I mean by that? Well, you're looking at a large volume of data, and so you want to analyze it from a certain perspective. And so you need some insight onto what that data is. And so, yeah, it's going to save you a lot of time, but maybe it's some clarity into the information that's at your hands. And so that could be the outcome that you're looking for as well, too. But then you want measurable results, right? Measure before and after. So how much time was it taking you before, right? And then what's the end result going to be? And maybe making that part of your weekly review. Like, I was able to implement this particular thing. And then at the end, you're kind of looking at it at the end of the week and you're like, man, I just put this in practice. And now I actually am seeing this much time saved, right? And so that can be a way to look at outcomes from this framework standpoint and actually save a lot of time. And so that's kind of our outcome that we want to be looking at. Anything else I need to add there, Alec? Did I miss anything?
Yeah, I mean, we have a cool example of this from a leadership perspective that we're going to look at today, which is all around a system for coming out of a meeting and bringing all the notes out of a meeting into actual action items, which is awesome. But sometimes we might be thinking or sitting in this meeting like, well, I'm not running meetings, I'm not doing all these things. This can be built for processes that are repetitive at any level. So something on my end that I was able to help build a plan and process for with these 3 steps was all of our proposals and our quoting, right? and helping to say, okay, this is repetitive. It's very repetitive. I'm creating proposals at least multiple times a week. What is success? Well, hopefully a combination of all those three things, right? In the best situations, but even if it's one or two. And then something that you probably always forget is measuring the outcome. How much time am I saving on these things? It's always good because that'll show you if it's successful or not. So it really doesn't have to be just from a leadership perspective, which I look forward to looking at with you on the meeting outcomes in our next couple slides.
Yeah, great. So why don't we move ahead to the next slide there? So a real example, plan before you prompt, using AI to summarize internal meetings and create clear follow-up actions. I mean, how many of us are in meetings during the week? I mean, it's for me, I feel like it's one meeting to the next. Between the two companies, there's varying types of meetings. They can vary in degree and length. And so it's, look at the task at hand is the first thing you've got to do. Post-meeting recaps are taking too long. I kind of feel personally on this one. It's a for for a whole lot of reasons, an issue that I have had in the past where you go into a meeting, you've got a recap, and we kind of talked about this, Alec, didn't we? I don't want to say we went down a rabbit hole, but it's looking at how you are getting information in a system. But so post meeting recaps, it's you've got all those notes, and then you got to recap the information. Like, what are your to-dos? What's the follow-up? How are you getting that information out of it and making decisions, right? Defining success is you got to save some time. So saving 15, 20 minutes per meeting and then reducing those missed action items. And that was always a big thing for me. It's like you have these meetings. What are the action items that come out of there? So using AI to make sure that you're not missing something and that it's clearly documented. And then the measurable results, an action, item or an example here would be, okay, before AI, I'm spending 20 to 30 minutes for a complete recap. Maybe that's a weekly team meeting with a number of people in it, a larger or all hands meeting. And after AI, now that's been cut down to 8 to 10 minutes. I would say potentially that's even less than that. Just depends on your position and what you're doing. But now you've got consistent, detailed summaries that are the outcome versus, you're having to parse through all this stuff. But then maybe I'll talk for a minute there just about this prompt that we're kind of given. What would be the outcome there for us?
Yeah, so we'll talk in a bit in our build it plan, maybe even a little bit after that, about how we're going to get this data into some kind of AI system. But once you have the data in there, you could, and the data in this case, what is data in this case? Well, it's just a transcript of the meeting, right? But the prompt one you can ask afterwards is, hey, please give me a summarization of this meeting to send out to everybody. And please list all the key decisions made, all actions items with responsible parties, and write a short follow-up email to the team and who I should send it to maybe. All of these things will bring everything together because Barrett and I, we've talked about in our meetings that, okay, we have to have clear, what is coming, who is doing what after this meeting, even though we might come out of that still and 20 minutes later, something gets us sidetracked. And then who was it that was doing that? So this can really help us bring in that transcript all together. Even if, you have that transcript, an hour after the meeting, you can still take that all together and be able to ask it these questions to get a real information out of it.
Right. And the reality is, not all of us can have a full-time executive assistant that is sitting there taking meeting notes and doing this. And even if you did, maybe they're using AI to speed this up and be that much more efficient, right? And move on to other things. So I think there's a lot of good outcomes that can come out of this. But at the end of the day, planning is the key here. So look at it as a problem and then try to identify what that task is and walk through this framework. Then you can be successful in having implementing AI from that angle. So I think this is a good opportunity to kind of take it from the planning it phase and now kind of moving back into building it. And this is really where, Alec, you've had some really great success. Well, let's talk a little bit about, the build it portion of this.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll go looking at our slide. We need to build an AI helper that means turning one-time idea into a repeatable system. And this idea that you're going to build and turn into a repeatable system, it's going to be a work in progress. You're going to be able to work on it, refine it as time goes by. But the goal is to find that thing that's repeatable over and over again and building a process out of it. So how can we build a process out of it? Well, we have this kind of 4-step methodology here, 4 steps to creating reliable AI helpers. I'll take it from the perspective of quoting or proposals that I was able to help with. And we'll jump back into the scenario of that AI helper for executive summaries after meetings. But here's how I was able to do it. So the first one, define the input, identify what information the AI needs. Well, in this case, it's pretty simple. The AI needs information to be able to build a proposal or a quote for a client. This might, for us, be a new prospect that we're hoping to be able to bring into the Ernie IT family of managing their IT. Maybe they need a number of computers or how many locations, or maybe it needs a quote for Windows 11, so licensing for that. So long story short, give it what it needs, define the input that it needs to get, then shape the output, decide how you want to receive that information back. Well, in this case, me and you, Barrett, we had spent a number of years building out proposals that we really liked, but it took us so much time. Well, we exported those to PDF, provided those to our AI assistant, whether that's ChatGPT Project or Custom GPT or even a chat, and said, hey, please model it after this, because we really spent a lot of time on this, but just make it much faster going forward. Then add the human touch. Me and you, Barrett, were the ones who built the proposals and have these relationships in the first place. We don't want that to just disappear now that we're using AI. All of the people here on this webinar today, the businesses we're involved in are, again, we said it last time we had our AI webinar, they are what they are because of who we are and how we deal with our clients, not a fancy AI tool. Hopefully AI can just make us more efficient and fast, right? And then again, after we've added the human touch and given it all the information it needs, we want to look back and document our success and find the prompts or the information that worked and maybe weed out the ones that didn't. I know all of us have put in different things to AI before, and the answers we get out of it are not good. Maybe you've even heard of the word hallucination. It starts talking crazy or out of context that was not given to it. But that's a learning time. You don't want to just give up on your prompt then. You want to be able to refine it. And then once you refine it and you get the information you need back, such as a quote that's 95% complete and that's acceptable to you, well, make sure you document how you got that prompt so that you can make it repeatable for next time. So those were the steps that we took on the quoting and proposal side. And now within 20 minutes, like our clients deserve, I mean, we know that changing IT providers or a project are big decisions. And we can almost differentiate ourselves now being able to get proposals and things back in the client's hands quick rather than spending days on it like other organizations might still be even doing.
Right. Yeah, I love you. We were talking a little bit earlier, and I know we'll kind of summarize this, but even for you, as you've gone through the building process, that documentation component that you talked about was really important. And I know there's lots of different ways to do it, but you talked a little bit about how, as you've worked through prompts that have been successful for you. Tell me a little bit more, and because I know I was really curious when I heard about this earlier, how you kind of keep them in a central spot or you document them in one place. Talk a little bit about that, Alex, because I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've been able to find so far, there's a number of ways to do it. And to keep it as simple as possible, there's some cool things like in ChatGPT, there's custom GPTs, there's projects.
Yeah.
And those can keep all your information there really well.
And that's what I've been using, like projects. I'll use those.
Yeah. Okay. And I urge everybody on the call, look into those. But to start, something that's really awesome, which was I was doing to start, is just documenting and maybe even a Word document as a master folder or something like that, what prompt worked really well. Or maybe even putting in there, and I know, Barry, you've done this numerous times, putting in your core values or the customer experience that we want our clients to have, or maybe emails that we've crafted out that we really liked those emails and how we communicated in a really positive way to our clients. When we document those and then we give them back to the AI tool and say, hey, use this document and make sure that my quotes reflect our core values, how we want our customers to be treated, that we're a customer first organization, then all of a sudden our prompts become so much better. But if you don't document those things and you just, oh yeah, this response was great, but my next one was trash, that's a red flag that shows you need to make a process like we're talking about with planning it, building it, and then sharing it.
Yeah, I love that. And I was thinking about, as you're saying this, it's like the title of the subsection here is the blueprint for building better systems. A blueprint is exactly that. It's a document. So, and I'm sure as AI continues to evolve, there'll be better ways to continue to do this. But just thinking that through for our listeners on the call today, it's like, I never really thought about it from that angle. And so I think as a tip to take away is just look for those ways as we're refining it to create efficiencies so that then you're not having to go back and re-say and redo all the same things. Like, a little example about me is like, I can't stand how Chat GPT, when I'm typing, it always says hi. I don't say hi in my emails. You're not going to get a hi from me. It's hey, or it's a different context. So I really appreciated that. That was a good example, Alec. Thanks. I think we've got one more slide here on building, kind of an AI helper. And if you go, I think we've got a scenario here. So this is looking at an AI helper for executive summaries, and I'm kind of looking at this this schedule. And I will say this is not 100% realistic, but it's not uncommon. So I feel this way, and maybe you do on the call. Like you look at this schedule, and here's the issue: you're in meeting after meeting after meeting, week in, week out. Sometimes I feel like my days are more stacked than this even. And so it's like, how are you going to keep all of this information organized? Right. So that can fundamentally be the challenge is like you're going through all of this. And then how do you have summaries that come out of each of these meetings and keep the information structured, keep it organized? How do you communicate with the department heads or the information that flows out of each meeting? So at the end of the day, that's the challenge. So like that's it, right? You leave each meeting with notes and action items, but you've got no time to organize or share them effectively across your team. And so when you're looking at this information, you got to come up with a solution to this problem, because the challenge is constant. It doesn't go away. I'm not getting out of meetings, but the solution is here to build an AI helper to kind of organize this meeting chaos. So you got to have clean, tiered communication. So your outcome has got to be something that actually helps you walk through this process. And we talked a little bit earlier about these executive summaries, right? So you've got meeting notes. How do you get your meeting notes? And that's kind of what we're talking about here. So an AI helper that is able to take this information, and let's talk first about the first thing, which is defining the input. And you've got to copy and paste your meeting notes, transcript, or bullet list from each department or meeting. And this is where I kind of hinted earlier, Alec. we went down a little bit of a rabbit hole on this one. And I'm not going to say there's a generational divide, but there's definitely a touch of a generational divide, because I am a handwriting guy. I am not, obviously I'm in tech, so, I'm all for everything techie, but I learn and I memorize like when I handwrite things down. But what do you do with your notes?
Yeah, so if we're coming out of a meeting and maybe it was an in-person meeting or something like that, I'm not the handwriting during the meeting type. I'm definitely the obnoxious AirPods in my ear, talking to my phone type afterwards, and really just spitballing, which I found really successful. So I think it shows there isn't a right way to do it. What
Right.
needs to happen though is you need to get your input, and in this case with this scenario, an executive summary coming out of a meeting, you need to get your notes, whether they're handwritten, you take a picture of them, or you're just talking to ChatGPT, and it actually does really well with you stuttering and saying long pauses while you're kind of transcribing your thoughts into it. But it doesn't really matter how. There's no right way. The
Right.
wrong way is to not do it at all, right? To not get your information into a chat bot or something like that, to then ask it questions afterwards.
Yeah. And that's the key point here is we all have different methodologies. I was really teasing Alec because he just had a kid, and I'm like, I have 3 kids in my house. If I start talking into my phone, it's an invitation for them to come into the room and to start talking to me. I don't know what it is about kids and like talking to your phone, but it's just a guarantee that like, and then I could imagine myself auto dictating my notes. But what I was able to do is just take pictures of a ton of notes, and I can do that quietly. So even when I was on vacation, I caught up with my notebook, and chat did an incredible job transcribing that for me. So I saved a ton of time. But you're right. Like, we were splitting hairs about how we kind of got on a side point. But for everyone on the call, really defining the input, lots of different ways. Even in our comments here, like, you probably have a tool that you could use. So some will use auto dictation, in the meetings, or attendance in meetings. If you're using Teams or Zoom, it's got, ways to take that transcription directly in. So define the input, then you got to shape the output. So, using prompts to kind of create your summaries. And I love looking at this from different angles. Could be for department heads, programming teams, or a simplified version for an all hands meeting. The idea with that is think creatively from your position where you're at, and then focus it on that group. So as you get the information from the meeting you're in, write it from that perspective. Think about shaping the prompt from the perspective of the attendees in that group and how you're presenting it. Alec had a great example of a sales meeting. You could shape it from that, prospect. That's going to be a little different than your internal meetings or a one-on-one, or how you do it. So a little bit different there. And then let's take a moment and just talk about the human touch here. We touched on it earlier. Reviewing the summaries, adjusting tone or priority points, and clarifying context before sharing. Alec mentioned core values. For us, we have our CX, like we have our never and always, things that our team does and should always do and should never do. I have certain clarifying points in my language that I do and just don't do, and I can tell instantly. And maybe some of you on the call, you just notice when things feel AI-ish, right? And they lose that human element. But Alker, is there anything else that you're doing, like, from this perspective, that has helped you? Because I think it's really. Oh, Crystal just mentioned on the call them pesky dashes. Yeah, those dashes make me nuts. That's a good one.
Yeah, from my side, I think I've had to tell myself, and this kind of brings it what we were talking about in the very beginning of stop playing with AI like a toy, turn it into a tool.
Yep.
When it gives you something you don't like, don't just accept that and tell it once, hey, please remove all the M dashes, or stop saying hi, change hi to hey, right? If it happens once and it's not your touch, then make sure you have some kind of prompt or Word document or something that you can provide to it every time you ask for a prompt that is all based off of what you want it to be. It should just be a red flag. Hey, this isn't how I like to speak. Okay, what can I do? Maybe a master prompt, something like that, to make it so that it is next time.
Yeah, that's a great point. But yeah, the dashes, the highs, yeah, that's all good stuff. So just adding that touch to it can really help save time and then make it more natural and effective for you. Yeah. So the fourth thing, documents your success. We've kind of talked on that one to a good bit of length here. Save your prompt structure so you can reuse it every week. Alec had a great idea with the master document list. I think that's great. Each tool set has its own different ways to save the information. I was talking about projects earlier, but I think the key here is to continue to refine the language to match your company tone, and then update sections automatically. I mentioned, our company core values, giving those reference points, putting that in there. A lot of companies, have different core values or different approaches stylistically, how you want to put it in. Man, we talked earlier too, Alec, about even like different regulations, and referencing that. I think if you're in, the medical industry, you have HIPAA regulations, financial, you're going to have PCI, other compliance type things. So it's like referencing that to make sure that you're abiding by those compliance issues in your communications, especially if it's external, I think is extremely important too. So using that for some of the framework can be helpful, but got to have it documented. So I think that's good. All right. Let's kind of move on to our next slide now, which is bringing us to, excuse me, the point here for actually doing this thing. So we all love prompts. This is an example of a prompt that we can use. So we have that summary. We talked about how we build it out. Alec, you kind of want to walk us through this prompt, how we could use this for taking all that information and then really putting it together. Maybe we're emailing this out or getting this information, condensed for our notes or for use later. You want to walk us through this prompt?
Sure. Yeah. And each one here this is just an example again. But after you've gotten all the data into whatever tool it is you end up wanting to use, the transcript, your voice taken notes, if you were in an in-person meeting and you took a bunch of pictures of your notes and uploaded them, once you've gotten all the information in there, well, then it's time to manipulate it and, of course, to get the output you need from it. So in this case, it says, please use the meeting notes, maybe that I just provided via however method I gave, and create 3 summaries that are tailored to the different audiences. An audience could be the marketing team, right? And maybe there was a 10-minute portion in your meeting regarding marketing. It could be, of course, here it says for department heads. If you're a smaller team, it could be just action items per person coming out of it. And then maybe even a simple version for our company-wide all hands update that we send out via a Teams message or an email. But it's really just remembering you can ask it to get, as long as it has the data it needs, ask it outside. Figure out what it is that you need from it. If you see yourself lacking in an area where one person is really struggling to get action items and create them afterwards, we'll make sure it's very clear from it. And again, keep adjusting this. It goes in there to the box at the very end. If how the output comes out of what those actions item are a little too firm, and maybe your team culture is to be more friendly and not getting things like directly to the point. Well, make sure that those prompts going forward, even that master prompt that you use, knows that it shouldn't be the same every time dealing with, please make this message more friendly or please make this message more formal. You shouldn't have to do that every time. And if you do, it's a red flag to kind of make it a process.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I think part of this too is, and you talked a little bit about it earlier, is this, I guess it's not a fixed point in time thing, right? Like we should be looking at these prompts as like AI is evolving. I mean, there's new updates coming out. So like a prompt that worked really, really well 3, 4 months ago, there may be an adjustment or something. So we're going to have to pay attention and adjust and make some tweaks, some minor adjustments there, because like you said, I mean there could be things that we need to kind of move through. I think about it too, like as we're looking at this whole thing together, we've talked about planning everything. We've talked about really building out the structure, making sure that that's nice and solid. It's like we've built some really great ideas around this. Let's move into now, like if you think about our teams and looking at our team book together, it's like strong teams are really important. And I think about how we want to create a culture where it's like we're able to share this information. And at the end of the day, like AI is not perfect. And you want your teams to be able to practice on it, kind of have some experimentation. They're not going to be absolutely perfect in what they do. So our teams, just like AI, kind of need to learn from their mistakes. And the key here is, and I think this is so important for all of us, is that when we have in leadership, when we have something that is working really, really well for us, like the best example that we can do is share that with the rest of the team, right? So if we're a power user and we're having all these great productivity tips and skills, it's like, why would we not share that with our team, right? So that innovation, that those advancements that we're using could now spread across our organization, and really we're all at an advantage. I think that's a really positive, good way to look at it. And we talked a little bit earlier about some things we need to look out for, but maybe we can talk through some of those steps. So I'll tell you the first one there, but it's, build awareness, show quick, real examples of how AI increases efficiency. We've kind of talked through those already. Even within the organization, it's like show your team those examples, talk to them about what you're doing, and then let them see exactly how that's happening. So you got to, incorporate it into your meetings, give real life examples. And then maybe Alk, you take the next point there on our slide.
Yeah, the next point's encouraging practice. Let teams test tools in safe, low risk ways. Something that we incorporated was a custom GPT that is troubleshooting based on our methodology right here at Ernie IT and how we want our customer experience to be.
Yeah.
All of a sudden now we've given a custom GPT within Chat GPT all the information on our core values, our nevers and always, all these things that how we want our customers to be treated. and gave it to as a tool as our team to be able to troubleshoot items now. Well, that immediately gave them somewhere that, again, safe, low risk area to be able to get information to troubleshoot problems maybe they've never even seen before. So let your team play with them, but then Barrett, I'll let you hit the next one. If you're going to let your team play with them, you got to make sure you're setting guidelines.
You do. You really have to set some guidelines, clear standards on how and when to use AI. It goes back against if you're using it for communication, what's your company's core values? How do you communicate? How are you setting those standards, right? If you just let them run loose, let them run wild, like AI is going to do what it does. It's going to, we've talked tremendously at length with a number of different people about, you feed it information, you could get stuck in a feedback loop, right? You give it one perspective and you have it dig in, and then all of a sudden you're getting that perspective back, and it could be very dangerous from that element. So making sure that you're setting some guidelines, that could be SOPs or policies or procedures. That's one way to look at it. But I take the stand, make sure that you're having conversations with your team, talking about it. If you don't like the output, like what you've said earlier, Alec, talk to them, help them understand why maybe that cold response from AI is cold, like help them learn and figure that out. And then, this last one here, we could probably take this one together, but it's just like we're doing on this call. I mean, it's like you get a win, you share a win, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's no one else on our team that is out here, normally doing proposals and quotes, but being able to build that and show our team that this is something out there. And this is even part of the share it, right? Hopefully with this share process, and now that we have a process for proposals and quotes, is as Earning IT continues to grow, maybe we get somebody else in that's doing this, and there's an entire system, SOP, start to finish, that incorporates AI into it. And that's a win for everybody. And hopefully we can find other ways to build that in for the technicians, whether they're on site, remote, however that might be.
Sure. And I was thinking about, you have to recognize there is a creative element, from the human side of this, right? So if you're thinking creatively, like those of you on the call today, within your own organizations, you're probably thinking of ways right now that you can, one, implement it maybe within your own teams. But if you go back to the planning phase, you probably started out, okay, maybe I can use AI to help me with this thing. And then you're going to walk through this framework. And now all of a sudden, it is a creative process on the human element side of this, right? And so you can start asking it questions and look for ways to have sort of creative uses. And that's where your team can come into play here, right? So celebrate the wins with them. But when they start using it creatively, it's like recognize those creative uses and try, if it's possible, to implement them, because man, that's where you're really going to take off, because then you can start kind of accelerating this thing. And a lot of our, you think of the big successful companies, even here in Wilmington, that have been able to pivot and implement AI and have had huge success from that perspective. Certainly we've seen it, ourselves, but it can really help create efficiency, and you want your team involved, in all the elements of that. So it's exciting from that element. All right, let's look at it all together. One big picture here. So our framework: build it, plan it, build it, share it. We started, I'll take the first one there, Alec. We talked a little bit about the toy box, getting away from treating AI like a toy that we keep in a toy box and moving more towards, the toolbox. What does that mean? Well, we start small, set a clear goal, and we have to measure success. So AI adds value rather than noise. I illustrate it this way. Think of Toy Story, think of the toys making all this noise and just noise in the background. My kid walking in the room with a really loud toy, and it's like, that's all you hear is noise, versus a tool that's being used to create something. It's a power tool, whatever it is. Yeah, it makes some noise. At the end of the day, it's productive. It's getting something done. And that's what we want. We want to use it like a toolbox, approach it from that element. So Alec, why don't you talk about building it?
Yeah, so once you have found that repeatable process and have planned how you're going to, take that thing that you want to automate with AI, then you need to build that automation. And we talked through those 4 steps. You'll get this the presentation afterwards, which again is to try and you want to get the information into it, however that is, whether that's voice dictation, whether that's taking pictures of notes, to each our own, right? Or of course these different AI note takers and transcription tools. Get it in there, model it after what you want, add your human element, and then, of course, make it repeatable and share it and document your success.
Yep, absolutely. And then you bring it all together, what you've learned, how you've taken this planned process, you've built it out. You've got a team, right? And I'll just say this, for those of you, if your team is one person, that's great. Maybe you have family members, other people, and you're sharing what you've learned with them. But at the end of the day, help your team learn and share what drives real results throughout the entire company. So we talked a little bit about that. It's going to include documentation, following through on it, but making sure you set some guardrails, celebrate those wins. As you guys get through your organization, you're going to have some really great successes. If there's some not so great successes, that's okay. Talk about them, but make sure that you're working through the wins. And then if there's some really great creative ideas, share those too. Make sure that your team is working with each other and has an understanding, and staying also within the guardrails that you establish too. That's really important. So that is bringing everything together. That's sort of the conclusion of the information that we provided. There's so much on this series of AI. And again, at the end of the day, it continues to change and adapt, and we're seeing so much advancement. That's why we're kind of continuing to do this series, and we'll continue to do more. But right now, we're going to kind of turn it back over to you. Are there any questions that you'd like to ask? Crystal's going to kind of help moderate this for us, and we'll go to the little Q&A box and see if we've got anything posted there. I don't see anything coming through yet.
Makes our life easy. Well, we'll see if any come in.
Okay.
I'm muted. Can you
There
hear
you
me
go.
now? Can you hear me? When you guys are determining what task that you want to repeat with AI and you want to put into this process, how do you determine which ones are suitable for AI versus which ones still need a human to sort of man that and take that reign instead of moving it to something more, AI-ish?
That's great. That's a really good question. Yeah, we could probably both tackle this one. I mean, Alec, do you have a process in your head for making that decision, or is it just a natural outflow of is it simple and automatable, and can we, I don't know, Crystal, maybe I ask AI what it thinks.
Well, there's not really anything I feel like at this point that, we're not having at least some impact on, even if we're using AI to accomplish it. Just like we said, we add our human element to it. We don't want to just let it go crazy and, yes, this email it drafted, copy, paste, send, right? You're going to do some edits to yourself. However, my thing that I've just tried to do is, if I notice that I'm using AI in an inefficient way often, that's my trigger point for making an automated process and going through this plan of planning it, building it, and sharing it. If I keep going back to a chat bot to just, an example, I keep going back to the proposals. Hey, help me build a proposal. Here's my last one. Make it for this company. Okay, that's inefficient. How do I make this more efficient? Give me better proposals. Give me better quotes. Give me better things out of it. So for me, always going to be a human element, but when I'm realizing myself that I'm doing it more than once in an inefficient way, then I want to follow this methodology.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer.
Mhm.
Looks like we've got in the chat here, Drew Smith is asking. He's asking a good question. I think it's completely valid too. How do you address security concerns for your organization? And I think that's a multifaceted question. I think I can take a stab at the first part, and then Alec, you can please fill in the gaps, for me. But I think first of all, there's not, a one all end all answer to that question. I think there's some governance that comes into play here. Like you've got to have some, and every industry is a little bit different, right? So the key thing for me is that you're making sure that your information, your data isn't going into public models. So I think about like Chat GPT. You're not just dumping in very confidential or information that maybe you would not want the public to see into a model for it to use. That's why you need to be careful. I'm not making a recommendation, but I'll use an example like Copilot that's tenant based and structured within an environment that locks in its data. That allows you to say, take that data and that modeling is done on that specific set versus it being publicly available or training on that data. I think that's extremely important, particularly if you're in an industry that's regulated. If you're in finance, healthcare, anything like that, it becomes absolutely critical. The second part of that is, and I think these are changing pretty frequently, is having some policies and procedures that address that very particular issue. So, an SOP or a policy first that says this is how we use this in our organization. And then the second part is, just like you would have a work from home policy or remote device that attaches to your handbook, you'd have something that says, hey, this is our general AI policy, right? That employees aren't going to dump, you're not going to take your XYZ private financial information with your name all over it, which maybe you wouldn't care if it didn't have your name on it, but or other key company information or names or social security numbers or whatever, private, and then put that out like in a public facing model like ChatGPT that's not the enterprise version that's isolated. So that's my quick stab at that question. There's a lot more to it. Obviously, securing that access to the AI model that you're using is another question, like with multi-factor and all that good stuff. But Alec, you want to take I'm sure I missed something.
Well, I think the only thing you missed that I would definitely point out is a policy is the catch-all really to trying to keep your organization safe. But what's really going to keep them safe is training, right? How good educational content on when to use it, what not to put in it, what's the difference between like you said, a trained model on information you give it that's completely available to the public compared to a private model, which are, I'm guessing not many people on this call are accessing a private model, even in their own office that they have.
Right.
But good training, it's the same as, phishing training, right? We can have a policy that says don't click on phishing emails, but what's going to get the person to really train or to know, just like we know through Ernie IT, is lunch and learns, ongoing training, even trying to trick them into clicking on a link. And if they do, right, they have to watch a couple-minute video on what not to do next time. So good training.
Yeah. That's why there's two of us on this call, right? Because I know, I think that's really good. Yeah, I mean, I think hopefully that answers the question for you there, Drew. All right, so Leah asked the question, when does AI become a red flag by your experience as an employer observing his workers? Okay, that's a good question. So when could it become a red flag? And I mean, I kind of go back to Drew's question, about security. I mean, that's a key one right there. So you got your no policy in place, nothing to address it. And all of a sudden you got employees like just dumping all kinds of private confidential information into, Chat GPT or it's obvious that in your communication, maybe that it's that this sort of thing is happening. I think that could be part of it. Maybe if they're starting to look at processes where AI is replacing some human judgment, that'd be a red flag for me. I'd be like, no, let's maybe not do that. Where there's some judgment calls that would have to come into question. Relying on it too much for financial decision making or strategic decision making, I think would be a red flag for me. That'd be a little bit concerning, but I don't know. Alec, you got any thoughts on the red flag part of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are such a customer first organization. We do our CX customer experience training. We do our nevers and always. We have our core values. And I mean, we go over our core values and nevers and always every morning during our stand up. I would hate for communication from our guys to go out solely from AI, right? Why do all this work on our culture when we're not putting in our human element? So we want efficiency, but we want our human touch of our culture to go out to our clients.
That is fair. We've had that discussion where that is kind of a red flag to me because there's some IT companies that have AI as the first layer of communication, and we've both kind of like, man, I just don't know about that. It kind of removes the human element, and yeah, it's great for efficiency and some automation, but I'm not sure that I agree fully on it. So that's our personal belief on that one, and maybe it continues to evolve, but
Sure.
So hopefully that answers that question for you. Also personal decision making. I think Like, I wouldn't rely on it too. That'd be a definite red flag on that one. So Maggie Gorman asked the question, any experiences where AI has helped you to shorten meetings, reduce the amount of meetings, enhance the team's sense of knowing what's going on? Shorten meetings, reduce the amount of meetings. That's a good question. I would say, I think, let me address the last part of that, the team's sense of knowing what's going on first, and then I'll back that into the less meetings because we all want less meetings. Um, the sense of knowing what's going on, I would say the documentation and cutting down on time allows for more time with people, which I think is an added benefit. So the team's sense of knowing what's going on is a way of making meetings more meaningful. And I think if you can be more efficient with your time, have structured agendas, and have, for example, if you were using AI to help prepare an agenda and to stay focused, then would that not by nature mean that your meetings would be more concise, more efficient, more productive? And then your team would also be more apt to know what's going on within an organization. So I know I'm kind of answering this with a question with a question, but I think those are probably the outcomes that we would see. Um, and I think that we kind of have predetermined length of our meetings, and if we're done covering what we're going to cover, then we end the meetings anyway. I don't particularly like to just suck up time for the sake of, utilizing it. So I would say AI has helped with that. What would you say, Alec? I mean,
Yeah,
curious to
I'd
get
work
your
back on
perspective.
that too. If you just look at our meeting today or our conversation today about taking notes out of a meeting and making clear deliverables, well, hopefully that will reduce the amount of follow-up you'll need to do, which then means hopefully less follow-up meetings regarding, maybe it's all about a project, right? You start a project, you have clear deliverables with an AI tool. You can go back to notes you took in that hopefully will reduce it going forward, that you don't need a part 2, 3, 4 to that meeting just to rehash things you've already done. So I think just implementing tools and making that one meeting a powerhouse meeting will reduce the repeatability of needing to have more and more about the same topic.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I think those are all good points, and I would hope that it would not be the inverse, right? I would hope somebody's not using AI to like generate more opportunities to have more meetings and more time, and that we can all be more productive from that. But then maybe you have a cultural problem or something. I don't know, but hopefully, Maggie, that answers your question. All right, let's see if we've got anything else.
I think
Of
Gray
anything.
asked, of all AI options, which one is your favorite and why? Um, I mean, my favorite, I use the Copilot and ChatGPT the most, right? That's
Yeah.
just the daily workhorse. But a cool one, a shout out, it's free. If it's a great learning tool, is Notebook LM. So that's a Google
Yeah.
tool, super cool. Gives you great flashcards, gives you great questions. And then the coolest part about it, give it whatever information. It can even take YouTube videos, whatever it is, and it will turn whatever information you give it, the most boring possible information, will turn it into a decently entertaining podcast.
Quote unquote decent.
Yeah, it's decent. It's not amazing. It's not your favorite podcaster, but it really does allow you to consume content much quicker and without being bored out of your mind. So that's my thing.
Yeah. Good. I think we already answered Maggie's question there. Okay.
It
Good.
is spelled Notebook, Noteb. I'll put it in the chat. Notebook LM, and it's by Google. So it's one of the big providers for sure.
Yep. That's some fun stuff. All right. So that's gonna kind of take us to the end of our webinar today. We're gonna kind of pop this over to Crystal. Crystal, I know, and just a reminder for housekeeping, we will send out an email kind of with a breakdown. But Crystal, do we have a winner of the gift card?
We might. I need to see though in the chat. Can I get a thumbs up if you're still here? For everybody that's still here that wants to win, can you put an emoji in the chat for me? And we'll make sure that our winner's still here before I call them out.
Okay.
Before I put them on blast that they snuck out of here before. Yay, look at that. Yay, yay, yay. Awesome. So
Cool.
everybody's still awake and listening, so that's exciting. So our lucky winner today is actually Morgan. So
All right.
congrats. I just want to make sure you were still here lingering with us. We appreciate you being on the chat. I'm pretty sure I have your email address, so I will reach out. We're connected on LinkedIn, I believe, too. So I will make sure that you get your
There you go.
$50 Amazon gift card. And I like you mentioned, we'll be emailing out the guide. I have actually just a couple more things I wanted to put in it. Some of our questions and such that we went over today, I'll put into the guide for y'all too. So yeah, absolutely. Thanks for y'all being here with us. Thanks, Barrett and Alec, for the conversation. The last screen there has contact information for us, for Barrett, Alec, even myself. If y'all have questions about AI or anything that we talked about today, then definitely get in touch with us. We love teaching and being a resource, so we'd be glad to talk to you some more about AI.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye bye. Thank
Take
you
care.
all. Bye.